Welcome to Black Belt Beauty Radio, a podcast fueled by a passion to support your journey in developing your most beautiful and optimal performance in life. Each episode is driven with the intention to elevate your mind. When we elevate our mind, we elevate our life. So get ready. It's time to rise. Your work, your backstory, everything is just, there's so much to say about it, and I'm excited to dive into as much as we can today. But I have so much respect and really just honor and appreciate how you show up in the world and how you've been able to take all of your life experience, which is so, your journey is gnarly. It's beautiful. And weave it into gnarly for sure, girl. I'm like, and I'm all about resilience and grit, like these attributes that you speak about, that you coach on, that you teach on. These are core subjects of mine too. But you've really, what I love so much is that you really live it, and you can tell because not only in your new amazing book, That Sucked, Now What, which we're going to so deep dive into, but I know as a very deep thinker and liver, very, like self-inquiry, been writing my whole life. When you're able to create frameworks and you really create processes and strategies and tactics, and it's not just from like an academia standpoint or something that you learned, which also science geek, so I love your science is strong, like that whole background is so rock solid with you. But this is the key point for me is like, man, but I can tell that you have really thought deeply about your own journey and your own process in addition to all of, the academia background and all that, and have been able to then present everything that you do in your work, which, again, it's strong frameworks, tactics, and strategies that help individuals around the world. So yeah, it's a long intro, but really it doesn't even scratch the surface to say that I'm so excited to be here in space with you and to get to know you more and to share your beautiful energy, wisdom, knowledge, and voice on my channel.
Oh my goodness. I'm so excited to dive in, love. This is, I feel like there's just, I love when, things kind of are able to get alchemized, but also where we then have a shared kind of common thread. So thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness. My pleasure. You said alchemize. So, I have all these notes, which is so fun. That sucked. Now what? Alchemizing the moments that suck in life. So turning the hard into gold is what I've said. And I actually have like a little, because I love to do this with my guests who are authors, but this is kind of my little blurb, an empowering blueprint of self-regulation and embracing the super shitty moments in life for what they are and discovering ways to self-actualize and thrive from them. That's really, like my little bit that I took from this incredible book that you have written. Yeah.
It's all of it. Yeah. Yes. It's just, I feel like it's all of the feels. And I think so many of us and so much of who we are is because of, how what we've gone through and what we've allowed ourselves to experience and feel, because there were even times in my journey where I didn't allow myself to feel until the pain got so big and so much. And so I think that, there is the beauty in recognizing that, the beauty in just looking within, and sometimes having to force yourself to like look within and look under the rug, under the hood to see, okay, what is it really that I'm actually so afraid of? What is it really that I'm actually not being truthful with myself? But it does take a certain level of bravery, certain level of courage to actually, kind of go into the depths of those scary places within ourselves to be like, oh shit, this isn't working out. And I don't know either. I don't know what to do, or I think I really need to do something different.
Yeah, no, it's so true. It takes so much courage to face yourself, but it truly is, in my opinion, the most empowering thing that you could ever do. I like to think of, because it's just so easy to judge yourself, right? It's not easy to be a student of self, but when you shift into student mode, then you are able to, really just evaluate and really absorb your experiences as information and then decide, right, what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I think that it's also to yes, be a student is definitely one thing. I think that now that's like the way that I operate of whatever setbacks and challenges and obstacles, come our way. And I think it never really was that. I feel like I've had to, looking back and kind of the struggles that I've gone through and the tremendous amount of loss, being super young and then going into kind of the biggest dark night of the soul of the biggest initiation for me around divorce and heartbreak and trusting myself, that then I had no choice but to become a student and then vow to say, all right, I know nothing. I'm going to be a lifelong student, even though, from kind of the outside world, I had this hat of being a doctor or a dentist, a cosmetic dentist. And that was kind of this facade life that I had, that I worked really hard to get to. But I think that because if I go back another layer, it all stemmed from an upbringing with tiger parents and, parents that were immigrants and they only knew like 4 professions. You could only, but I think that's kind of like similar to the Persian culture. Yeah. It's like education, education, education.
You're a doctor, you're a lawyer. Yeah.
Right. And like for the Filipino side, it was like nurse or any sort of like healthcare job.
Yeah.
And then for my dad, it was like, who's Indian, it was like, doctor, dentist, lawyer, engineer. Mm-hmm. That was the only thing that was acceptable. And so you're primed to think nothing more than these traditional confines or conventional confines of success. And you're the know-it-all because you should know everything. You are the doctor. Why should you ask for help? Why should you, go into therapy? Like, what is that? Why do you need that? And so I had to do years and years and decades of unlearning that to actually ask for support, but didn't come without the struggles and the failures and the setbacks and like the full on, literal, gut punch in the stomach of what is not going to work.
Yeah. Would you say that in that process for you, because this is something that, it's like built into the premise of your book, but it was really this, I'm going to be real with myself. I'm going to be real with what I'm feeling. I'm going to be real with what I'm going through. This shit sucks. It's hard. And that truth factor is really like the initiation to the pivot, the breakthrough, the, healing, all of it, would you say?
Oh, absolutely. I would say like I wasn't really open to it. And I think most people are kind of in this, and for those of you listening, but I think most of us have to go through something, hopefully not after listening to this podcast and grabbing my book, maybe it could suck less. But if you're in the suck right now, if you've experienced a suck recently, and I'm saying any sort of suck where it's, been a hardship, a breakup, a loss, getting fired from a job, didn't get the promotion that you wanted, getting betrayed by a friend, or maybe got gaslit from a family member, whatever it is that made you feel less than, that really was unexpected in what you were either hoping for. And it can be a huge blow. And I think for me, I didn't, you kind of know. And I think, but the biggest thing for me was, wow, I've lived under this dark cloud for so long, for so many years. And I just didn't know better. I didn't know that there was a reality outside of that, because my life growing up was such chaos. It was such survival mode, having gone through losing 3 members of my family before I was 19. Yeah. It was rough. It was, I think looking at me from just, the other side, one can say, oh, what has she really been through? And what have I not been through? But to live it on the other side, to say, some really shitty, fucked up moments.
Totally.
Where I wasn't really ready because, again, this happened at a young age.
Yeah.
But I think what I really want to share is, doesn't matter what age or, season of life that we're in, it's when we're ready for it. And I wasn't ready for it even all throughout my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
It was in my 20s was just like hustle and trying to prove myself and trying to make sure that people wouldn't look at me less than. I mean, every young person, especially in their 20s, wants to fit in. They're just trying to find themselves. They're just trying to find their footing. And so I found the love of my life. But one of the coping mechanisms that I had was holding on to relationships that were not healthy because I didn't know what that actually looked like for myself.
Yeah.
And I was so afraid of losing another person that I'm like, I'm just going to hold on to whatever gives me love right now.
Yeah.
Until I recognized and realized hitting rock bottom, looking at the mirror on December 31st in my beautiful home that I got because I had done the traditional route of like the accolades and the success and the dentistry and the practice and all of these things that were outward success. But man, was I starving for just emotional permission and permission to just crumble and fall apart. I felt like I needed to be this persona that I wasn't. And I think also that's what really led to this pivot of unlearning everything and this pivot of really being able to say, holy shit, this is not working. And it's like a higher self of mine. It was somebody, it was like the ghosts of my parents, my guides, and who were ushering me into that next level of myself. Call it whatever you want, angels, but I think when you're ready, the teacher appears, right? The Buddha's famous saying. And I think also what Rumi says of, in order to, go through the pain, you've got to feel the pain. I think I'm totally butchering the saying. We'll have to look that up, but it's to go through it. And for me, I couldn't hide it anymore. I couldn't deny it anymore. It was like, this relationship sucks. It's not working. I am being threatened for my life and I need to get out, and it's just like a visceral, I need to make a decision now. Mm-hmm. And I think for anyone who's ever been in a toxic relationship where their confidence is so low or their self-worth is so low, something like that needs to shift and change. Because you'll read stories of, survivors and victims of these types of situations, but they don't believe in it themselves at all.
Yeah.
And until something is like, ignites the spark. And that's, I talk about, when and how you can get ignited just by sharing your voice and standing up to that bully or standing up and actually taking ownership for your life. And in that moment, I had to take ownership of my life and say, actually, no more. Yeah. And I'm going to focus on the healing that I denied myself for 2 decades.
Yeah, no, it's so powerful, and I think that's another thing that I love so much about your work is that you really normalize all of the human emotions, really. Like, meaning it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel frustrated. It's okay to feel fucking broken. Don't become broken. Don't become the feeling, right? And I really love that. It sounds like semantics, but it's actually a different, where I always say words are an experience, it's a different situation. But when you're resisting or you're denying the emotion, then you can't process it. You can't actually move through it and maybe gain the wisdom or whatever it is that you gain from it, right? So I love that, that's a big part of your message, because I personally believe that that's a fundamental, when you're talking about making these kind of breakthroughs and pivots and and it's really, I think it's like the starting ground to where you can start to really feel worthy too, like when you're gonna for you to get out of that situation or any, to start fighting for yourself, to make those changes, you have to start feeling worthy of the battle. That's my kind of language around it. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Absolutely. I think that inner, the inner knowing of of really aligning yourself with, and there's a whole concept in the book that I talk about, which is how to build your bounce factor. Mm-hmm. And your bounce factor is literally, if I talk about audacious resilience, what does that even mean? And where does that even come from? Because what we're all taught about resilience is to be tough, to be strong. But if we really peel it back, what does it actually mean? Well, in Latin, it actually means, so resiliere in Latin means to bounce. So it does not mean when I throw something on the ground, it's just going to shatter and break. Imagine you taking a piece of granite or glass, mm-hmm. and you're like, okay, I'm tough. I'm as tough as this granite. I'm so tough right now. But yeah, that granite is strong. It's brittle. It's so many things. But when you throw it on the ground, that's going to still shatter, mm-hmm. right? Yet if we take a bouncy ball, or, I have kids,
I love it.
or even a basketball, right? A volleyball, it's tough.
Yeah.
But when you let it go, it's going to bounce. But why? Well, because if you actually feel it, it has the properties of that softness there as well, that agility there as well, that flexibility, that give, right? So that it allows itself to bounce during hard times, during pressure, during stress, during setbacks. And, I think that as we are going through life's tests, and definitely for me, I know that there were emotions that I wasn't okay with experiencing. There were emotions that I wasn't okay going through. And definitely for anybody who's lost, family members, friends, colleagues, a pet, there are so many stages of grief, and not even, the loss of someone, but I think also the loss of an identity, the loss of just the idea of what your future could look like. It's grieving all of those things. And I think many times, at least even for me, I didn't allow myself for that, because when I was growing up, those feelings weren't validated. They were not even allowed.
Totally.
And I remember vividly, like growing up, my dad, would say, I'll give you something to cry about. And he would also say, Neeta, you're strong, and strong girls don't cry. Right. Mm-hmm. And so it was a tough time, because then you grow up thinking, okay, I've got to perform. I got to keep everyone, really happy and safe. And I've got to be this matriarch for everyone and hold the glue together. Well, that's really what my role was. And so then fast forward to my big night of the soul, when I'm like, I just can't hold it in anymore. I can't pretend that this marriage is actually working out, or this relationship's working out, where I need to lean on this inner strength and this inner warrior that's going to come out and finally stand up for herself. And it looked like me standing before, because things got pretty tumultuous, but it was me standing before a judge for the very first time to say all of these instances of abuse, and I think to not be ashamed of that, because I was ashamed of my situation, that, oh, wow, look at me. I'm this fancy little dentist with my practice, not even 30, having grown this $1 million plus practice. And here I am, so afraid of appearing before a judge, because why? Well, we have to go back into one of the roots of the bounce factor. The first pillar of that is we have to reconcile our upbringing. Well, when I was growing up, divorce wasn't a thing for immigrant households. No way. Mm-hmm. And failure wasn't an option. That wasn't something that I was definitely accustomed to feeling. So all of these feelings of shame and what will people think if they found out that I was actually not in this picture perfect marriage, that it actually fucking sucked. Yeah. and there was trauma written all over it. And so that's 2 out of the 4 pillars of the bounce factor, the emotional capacity to really feel and to really embrace different emotions that could be completely paradoxical, could be completely opposite. Mm-hmm. Yet, there are moments that we can find the magic in our mess if we allow it, if we pay attention to it, if we sit with that shitty feeling for a little bit of time. And I go through, ways where you actually can. And I take you through a few different emotional release practices, because I think most of us don't really know how to process emotions, because we distract, we bury, we numb, we go for, we do other things to, of course, self-soothe. And some of those coping mechanisms are great. And some of them are not healthy, right? Like picking up the phone, instant dopamine hit.
Yeah.
But if we go to a kickboxing class, great. Yes, we can definitely utilize our energy and release it in that way. Healthier ways to do that. And maybe sometimes we can actually sit in our misery and not judge it and welcome it and see what's really happening, because we're actually taking a moment to stop.
Yes, girl. Oh my goodness. There's so many things in there. They're so good. It's so true. I think, it's in those moments where you're willing to face it all, that you're willing to be vulnerable. And this is also the starting point to self-trust, right? Because vulnerability really does build trust, not just with others, but with yourself, right? And I totally understand. I mean, I think it's so fair and important to say that we as a society, when were we groomed to embrace your feelings? Like, when the fuck did that happen? Like, it's just starting to happen now, gratefully. But I'm, again, 44. Like, it wasn't like that, growing up for me.
Right. Right. I mean, most of our families grew up with, they had to leave their country. They had to, they were in survival mode. They had to assimilate to a whole new world and a whole new way of doing things. They weren't teaching us emotional intelligence. That was definitely not on the radar.
Exactly. No, exactly. And I love how you really incorporate, like in the book with the tactics, and it's like this whole body experience, which everything is holistic at the end of the day. You can't see your biology and your psychology are really informing each other, right? So I love, like one thing that you mentioned, and this is actually something that it wasn't taught to me. It was just a very natural, because of the relationship that I've developed with myself. But when shit gets hard, I will fucking put my hand on my heart and say out loud, Roxy, I love you. I get it, girl. The shit fucking sucks, but we got it. And that hand over heart, and I know you talk about it, and if you want to expand on that, because I think that that's just one, and you have several, but it's low-hanging fruit that self-soothes,
Oh my gosh, I love that you do that, because I think it's making the connection between mind and body, and for so many of us. And when I go in and speak to different organizations and those who aren't in tune with their mind body, right? It's very easy to just think everything up here in our minds.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to just second guess or self-critique or self-sabotage and judge even the way that we are reacting to a certain feeling. And I think, because of course I have small children, I now have different practices of getting into my body. And one of them is similar to what you do, but it's just like putting your hand over your heart and just saying, okay, we got this, right? And because in that mind-body connection, you're also feeling your breathing, and you're also paying attention and saying, all right, like, this is where we're at right now. But when were we when we were, or how were we when we were younger going through a bad day? All we wanted to do was go into the embrace of our parents, of our mom and dad, or whomever, going home after a bad day for just that embrace. Well, you can be that own embrace right now, right? You can be your own person where you can just put your hand over your heart and just connect to your body, connect to slow things down. And that's a physical representation of that. So I love that so much. I use that. I do also this thing of turning off the lights with my kids, because, but I think for anybody, this is a great reparenting, getting into your inner child tool that you can do for yourself in a non-judgmental way. And what it's basically just, we'll do this. I mean, so it's like you lie down, but you'll do legs up on the wall, whatever that yoga pose is. I never get that name right, but anyways, you guys must have seen it. So it's your legs, literally you have to lie up against a wall with your legs up the wall, because it's great for circulation. It's just great to ground yourself. And if you are working in you know, an environment where you can't do that, get a yoga mat and like put it up against any wall, but lie on the yoga mat or a towel. I'm telling you, it is the best grounding that you can actually do if you're having a rough day. And why? Well, there's so many amazing benefits to it when you're lying down. We don't lie often enough. And then also, basically, you're just closing your eyes. You're also putting your hand over your heart, but then you're basically breathing, and you're doing a set of, you know, 3 rounds of breathing where you're actually breathing in for 3, you hold for 3, you breathe out for 3, and then you do that part 3 times, but then you go, you know, then you breathe in for 3. So hold for 3 and then out. But in the exhale, you want to buzz. So bzzz. And I do this with my kids because, you know, they think it's funny, and, you know, then there's giggles and then it's laughter, because many times when you're exhaling, you know, you're like, bzzz, and it's just like fun and it gets the wiggles out. But imagine you're just doing it by yourself. You are going to giggle. You are going to change your state too, because you're probably like, well, what the heck am I doing this for? But the reason why we do that, in buzzing or chanting, even Om is another way. And you can say Om 3 times. That's something that I really, I mean, I remember from when my dad used to do that at home, and we'd be like, oh my God, if a friend comes over right now, can you just not, you know, and I would judge him so hard because I was like the cool, rebellious teenager at 14 when my mom was sick, but he would be constant. I mean, constant. And that's still what I hear in my brain. And so, and now I know why. It's our vagus nerve, our throat chakra, right, is very, it is one of the key elements, which is why I think singing is such a great thing that we can pick up. You know, I've had voice
even in the shower
lessons in the past. I mean, you know, karaoke, like why most of my Filipino family just like thrives on karaoke, and there's never any family fights, you know, never, because we're just jiving on karaoke. I mean, it's another level because we just keep things under a rug, but that's another story for another day. But we can jive on karaoke, and it's great. Why? Because it activates our vagus nerve. It calms our nervous system, and it brings us back into our body. And guess what? We are not in that fight, flight, or freeze anymore. We are in rest, digest. And we're like, oh, it's the same thing with buzzing. It's the same thing with humming. It's the same thing with chanting. So I've started to use that so much. It's one of the things that, you know, not that I'm trying to be like the next, I don't know, J-Lo, Ariana Grande. I would love to like project my voice in a way where it's soothing. And I think that, it's such a great practice for us. It's why you should probably have a playlist of 2 or 3 songs that you would love to sing. And just have it on the background. I mean, I have a whole list of these practices that are in the book as well. It's in a chapter called Magnify, because in part 3, we talk about 5 different ways to fly forward past sucky moments and to fly forward past, you know, any moment that sucked. Because many times I think for a lot of us, we're so quick to bypass what was really going on. But then there's some of us who get stuck in the suck, and they get stuck in the soup or the cauldron of whatever they're trying to process, where they get addicted to that. And so I guess, my question is like, where have we gotten stuck in our own pity party story where we're just not able to move forward? And, or we're just trying so hard with our inner warrior that we're not allowing that softness as well. So again, different balance, right? But I think that, those are some incredible tools where it helps you kind of get out of that suck and start to transform.
100%. And you know, when like my mind, because this is something that I love to talk about, and I think it's just so important in general for overall well-being, but it's that harmonization of your masculine and your feminine energy. Like you're either pushing too hard, you're in the masculine energy, or you know, maybe you're just, you know, and this is actually something I really want you to tease out, but becoming a victim of the situation, and that's just kind of where you get stuck. I love that you you explain the difference between a victim and victimization. Can you talk about that? Because I think that's so important.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh.
Oh,
yes.
you do? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So for me, the difference is, and I have this whole chapter around it because I think it's so important that, while I've lived through domestic violence, while I've lived through, being a victim of loss, losing my parents, losing my family, right? There's a difference between staying the victim and owning that story and having it be part of your identity versus, and having that pity party for one. Okay. Versus, you living through a time of, of extensive chaos and being oppressed and being bullied and sexual abuse and domestic violence, but we don't have to live there, which is why I think early on in my life, I made a choice because I started a nonprofit shortly after I went through this big awakening in my marriage and post-divorce that I wanted to help women who were also from immigrant backgrounds, who were in these kinds of patriarchal relationships where they didn't have income. They didn't know where to go. They were a victim in that sense, and they were victimized. And many of them they didn't have papers. They didn't have places to go. For me, I didn't have anywhere to go for one night. And so I'm like, all right, let me sleep in my friends' couches. You know what I mean? But some of these women, and I was a thriving dentist.
Yeah.
Part of it was my ego that was like, I don't know who to trust, et cetera, right? There's so many things that go into your brain. But when I started my own organization wanting to solve this issue, there's so many reasons why so many of these women can't actually leave. Like their perpetrators will find where they are. And so, and then they start to think that reality isn't for them. And I mean, I'm using such a big example because that was part of my world for a very long time. But I think that I needed to give them a different reality to hold on to so that they could, from victim, go into that survival mindset because they had then survived something and they've overcome and accomplished this task. Like for me, leaving on December 31st, 2011, for some of these women to find a safe haven, to trust other people that they might not know the language completely, but these are people that are going to be able to help them. Right. And so, and then to give them the tools to retrain and reprogram their brain and unlearn all of the programming of why they're not good enough, why they're not worthy, why they're, in this situation, to empower them to start taking, into their own, inner knowing and trusting their intuition and really building that to then move into a thriving mindset. And the thriving mindset is, it's not about your story anymore. It's about, all right, how are you going to pay it forward for somebody else? And, just in the work that I was able to do, and this was, really empowering women and girls, in the college and high school setup to not get into those types of relationships, to love themselves first. So they're not falling for the first love bomb from somebody that only wants to prey on them. And I mean, it's a whole thing. And especially with, I think TikTok was definitely not around at the time, but to really move into a mindset where you're flourishing, and that's the thriving stage. That's I don't give an F about anybody else. I'm going to do what's me. And to move from those three mindsets, it's not to say you'll never have a victim pity party for one. I mean, sucky moments happen and it's okay. Our feelings are valid. I'm talking about staying there and allowing it to be your identity and allowing it to be and I think for a while, I never really wanted people to look at me as, oh, she's the domestic violence queen. I never wanted to own that. I never wanted to own the queen of grief either.
Yeah,
That's like not
no,
what I
I
want to
get
talk
it.
about, right?
Yeah.
All the time. Because I feel like I've mastered life so much that like joy exudes from my pores naturally. Like that's just who I am because of the contrast.
Yes.
Because I know that there were so many moments in my life where it was hard, and toxic positivity really got me through that. I'm not saying that is for everyone, because I mean, I think this book will show you how I actually really feel about toxic positivity.
Exactly.
But did it help? Was it my coping mechanism? Like some people have coping mechanisms of shopping,
right,
until they drop, or being on the phone, or gaming, or sex addiction, or whatever addictions we all have, our vices.
Yeah.
And for me, that toxic positivity led me, but it also broke me in so many ways to now have an appreciation of, but those other feelings are so valid, and we need it, because pain is an indicator of that next evolution for us. Pain is an indicator that, hey, we've got to go within. We've got to turn the stove off, so to speak, so that we're not going to burn our hands, in the fire. Turn it down, and that takes the time to witness. That takes time to actually acknowledge and say, okay, I'm not going to do as much. I'm just going to be here and sit here for now.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing all of that. I mean, and I know we have more conversations to have, but I mean, I know that personally in my own life, my mother, we won't dive too deep into it right now, but my mother had to run away because my father was physically abusive to all of us. So like, trust me, I can go deep on all of that with you, but I so appreciate you sharing that, and even teasing out the victimization and victim, because this is also something so important that I really want to say. Because, when you're in a position like you are, where you're really here sharing ideas, tactics, hey, embrace your shitty moments and all your beautiful frameworks. I think one of the most important things is, but why should I trust you? Why should I trust you to guide me through this? And the book is, I mean, it's so good, truly. You really have kicked ass with this book, and it says so much more than we've even been able to dive into in this conversation. But it really does demonstrate all the fucking reasons why everyone should trust you to support them to move through, all the process of, ouch, this hurts, I'm hurting, I'm broken, I'm any of that. Okay, well, now what? Where do we go from here? So, And
I do want to say, and it's not, I am this, but I am feeling broken right now. I am feeling upset right now. I'm feeling jealous. I'm feeling like things are out of control. I am feeling, because we're not taking that on as our identity either.
Yes. Girl. No, that's so important. So, okay. Your book kicks ass. I adore you. Many more conversations to have. Where do people get the book? You have so many free resources in there too. Can you talk about that? Like, where do they go? Like, send them there.
Yeah, we partnered up with a lot of different organizations, and I wanted to make the content in the book valid for whether, if you have or know people that have been in domestic violence situations, have lost family members. We partnered up with all different organizations and even teachers to provide this for their communities. And so the resources that we've really put here, it's when you get the book at thatsucknowwhat.com. I mean, it comes with a 44-page digital color-coded guidebook that goes even deeper into the concepts that I've put in this beautiful handbook. And honestly, it's been such a labor of love. And I feel like it's everything that I've alchemized in the last several years of just doing this work. I mean, while this is my fourth book, this is my first ever one that I'm like, all right, we're just gonna let's just put it out there and let's make it edgy so that it's a book that reaches everyone, because everyone has had sucky moments or is going through something or will pass through something. And we know that it's finding the magic through those moments that sucked and to say yes to them. And so when you get a copy of the book, you get the 44-page guidebook. You also get a 5-day fly forward healing practice, which comes with like the meditations and the visualizations. And we start on day 1 with relationships, because we all kind of suck at that in many ways. And then day 2 is all about like where we're actually putting our energy, where we're leaking our energy, if we're people pleasers, recovering. I know I am a recovering people pleaser. And then day 3 through day 5, we go through how to cultivate abundance, and then also how to actually take brave action. I talk a lot about taking brave action, and that's my podcast as well. But also on day 5, we bring it back to self. And so that's just some of the tools. But when you get the book, there's a whole resources section that's chock full of, the different ways that you can allow yourself to create practices that serve you. And I actually share with you like how to do that and so much more. So I'm so excited.
Oh, it's so good. I truly felt your heart and soul in the book, and it's important it's so real. So, well, thank you for writing the book. Thank you for making time to connect with me and share you on my channel. And I look forward to the next conversation, girl. Thank you so much.
Oh my God, so much. Thanks, Roxanne.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode, you guys. If you loved it, please share it on your social. Throw it up on your Instagram stories and tag me. I'm at Black Belt Beauty. I am also at Roxy Look, RoxyLook. I love connecting with you guys. This is a conversation that I want to just continue growing with you guys. So if you feel inspired to hit me up, do so in that space. I always enjoy hearing from you. If you'd like to support this podcast, you can do so by rating it and reviewing it via iTunes. It's such supportive help, you guys. It really helps the visibility of this podcast. So I appreciate and thank you in advance for doing that. And on that note, you guys, I'm signing off with all my love and always looking forward to catching you on the next.